Hello everyone, welcome to Options with Doug, streaming live on Monday and Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Bookmap Discord and the Bookmap YouTube channel. Before I get started, I need to go through the disclosures. General disclosure: all Bookmap limited materials, information, and presentations are for educational purposes only and should not be considered specific investment advice nor recommendations. Risk disclosure: trading futures, equities, and options involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Here's my contact information. You can contact me on Discord. My name there is at Doug P. Also in Bookmap Discord, there's an Options-Doug chat channel. You can post questions, comments, and content related to the topics of my presentation or the topics of the channel that I'll go through in just a moment. I'm also on X. My name there is at Doug Pless. Here are the key tenets to my approach for trading. I believe that options trades and market maker hedging activity are key drivers of price in many stocks and futures. And that's certainly the case for the large cap tech stocks like the Magnificent Seven stocks, as well as the equity index futures like the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq 100. And for the S&P 500, SPX is the underlying index. SPY is the ETF version of that index, and the ES futures contract is a derivative of SPX. And when traders buy and sell puts and calls in SPX and SPY, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with the ES futures. And for the Nasdaq 100, NDX is the underlying index. QQQ is the much more liquid ETF version of that index. And the NQ futures contract is a derivative of NDX. And just like the S&P 500, when traders buy and sell puts and calls in NDX and QQQ, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with NQ futures. The focus of my presentation today and the focus of the Options-Doug chat channel is options order flow, the impact of options markets on stocks and futures, and the influence of market maker hedging flow on price action. I have a two-step process for trading. The first is planning, and I use positional analysis. I look at how traders and market makers are positioned in the options market and how those positions change from day to day to develop a thesis regarding the expected trading range and volatility for the day, as well as a directional bias. And the second step in my process is execution. I look at real-time order flow in Bookmap and real-time market maker hedging flow in Spotgamma Hero to confirm my thesis and for setups. And when I talk about setups today, I will be focusing on an underlying asset. Setups in that asset can be taken with futures contracts, shares of stock, or options, depending on the asset as well as the way you like to trade. And also these setups could be intraday or swing trades, longer time frame. Questions and comments are welcome, and I will be watching both the Options-Doug chat channel as well as the chat and YouTube for your questions and comments. Please feel free to post. I'll do my best to answer your questions. Here's my agenda for today, Wednesday, April 2nd. First of all, I want to go over news items, economic data, and events for today as well as the rest of the week. Then I'll go through my positional analysis. Then I'll review some setups from earlier today. Then I'll take a look at the live market. And when I get to the live market, if anyone has anything they want me to take a look at, please let me know. I'll be glad to do that. All right, let's get started with economic data and events, news items. And of course, I'm sure everyone aware today is Tariff Day. And actually, President Trump is going to be announcing the tariffs at 4 p.m. today in a White House event. So the tariffs have not been announced yet, but the market has been reacting very positively. Perhaps just looking forward to some clarity about the tariffs. All right, so that is the data for today, the event for today, the big event, Tariff Day. Coming up for the rest of the week, tomorrow, more PMI data out. S&P Services PMI, 9:45 a.m. And then ISM services PMI at 10 a.m. Then on Friday, the big data release of the week is the jobs report, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and then Jerome Powell will be speaking at 11:25 a.m. All right, so that wraps up the week, and then a big reaction to perhaps an anticipation of clarity regarding tariffs today, and then reaction to the actual data. We'll have to wait till tomorrow. All right, so that's the date. That is the news items for the week. Let's move on to positional analysis now. I'm going to start with the S&P 500, and this is the ES Futures and Bookmap. And there are a lot of interesting things going on today, a lot of key levels in play. More about that in just a few minutes. In just a couple of minutes. Let's step back. Let's take a look at a higher time frame. I'm going to go to the SPX, the underlying index. Start with a 1-day, 1-hour chart. I'm sorry, a 1-year, 1-day chart. Correction began at the February expiration. Then SPX found support right above the 5,500 put wall, right around 5504. That was on the 13th. And then on Monday, the 31st, SPX moved down, retested that level, did move down a little bit lower, final washout, double bottom there, and then a strong rally beginning just a few minutes after the open on Monday. All right, let's take a look now at a 30-day, 1-hour chart. SPX, again, the underlying index. 30-day, 1-hour chart. There's that test of the 5,500 level, the put wall. On the 13th, rally up to the election gap, back down just a little bit below the put wall on Monday, the 31st, and then a very strong rally that began Monday morning, back up to the 5,700 level. All right, that is the key levels in play for SPX. Let's take a look at now the expected moves. I'm going to zoom in just a bit. All right, the expected moves for the week shown with the dashed purple lines. There's the lower and upper weekly expected move, again shown by the dashed purple lines. Note SPX has tested that upper weekly expected move. That's just above the upper daily expected move. So the daily expected move shown with the dashed blue lines. Note SPX did trade down to the lower daily expected move this morning and then rallied up to the upper daily expected move. Very strong rally with no specific news. And it's almost like Jerome Powell dropped interest rates 50 basis points or something like that, but no news, huge rally. All right, so this is the expected moves. Again, definitely in play for today. SPX from the lower to the upper daily expected move. All right, let's take a look at the Spotgamma levels on this chart. And I'm going to point out the key daily levels. First of all, the put wall is at 5,500. That's a strike with large net negative gamma that can be expected to act as support. And the next level up is the volatility trigger at 5,700. That's Spotgamma's proprietary volatility and gamma flip level. Below that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is negative. In a negative gamma environment, market makers have to trade with price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to enhance or increase volatility. And that was definitely the case this morning. And we'll see what happens to gamma tomorrow. So SPX still trading below the volatility trigger. And then the next level up is the call wall at 5905. kind of a strange level for the call wall. That's a strike with largest net positive gamma. It can be expected to act as resistance. And then finally, the absolute gamma strike is at 6,000. That's a strike with largest absolute positive and negative gamma. That's where most of the gamma-weighted open interest is concentrated. Note these levels did not shift at all today, but they did shift yesterday. So yesterday, the volatility trigger, put wall, and call wall all shifted lower. Absolute gamma strikes shifted higher. And again, that was for yesterday. And they remain at the same levels today. And for SPY today, the volatility trigger shifted higher and the call wall shifted lower. Also to a kind of a strange strike, not a big round number, to 571. All right, so those are the spot gamma levels in play for today. Let's wrap up our view of SPX with a 1 minute chart. Hello, Stephen. Welcome. Glad you're here. All right, so here's maybe a final washout on Monday morning. Test of the 5,500 put wall. And that was not the put wall on Monday. The put wall was actually at the JP Morgan long put of the JP Morgan collar that expired on Monday. So remember, I talked about potential put wall candidates at 5,500 and 5,600 on Monday, and it turns out that 5,500 was elected as the put wall, and it remains at that level. And then a strong rally today, a little bit of a gap down, test of the lower daily expected move, also a combo 3 level, right around that same level, and then a big rally straight up to the upper daily and weekly expected moves just below the volatility trigger. And note these expected moves. I do post those in Discord every day, and they would have been extremely helpful today. All right, so that is the 1 minute chart for SPX. Last 3 days, powerful rally from 5,500 all the way up to almost 5,700. About a 200-point rally in 3 days in the S&P 500, SPX. All right, let's go to Bookmap now. So in Bookmap, I have, actually I want to take a look at one other chart first. Let's take a look at SPY levels in play for today as well. All right, key level support today was the SPY 555 level. And SPY 555, that's a large gamma 4 level. Double bottom at that level, a test at 8:30, and again just at the cash open at 9:30. Then a strong rally, somebody lit the fuse at the open, and SPY rallied up to right around 567. So a 12-point rally in SPY, big move. Other levels in play for SPY: 560 large gamma 2 and 558 combo 2 level, and then 565 is the volatility trigger. Remember, the call wall is still up above at 571. So SPY did trade above its volatility trigger and now back down below that level. All right, let's go to Bookmap now. Now on Bookmap, I have SPX levels, SPY levels, and also key ES levels on this chart. So first, let's take a look at there's the SPY 555 level, acting as support this morning, this large gamma 4 level. That's just below the ES, lower daily expected move right there. And I do calculate that separately, independently from the SPX, upper and lower daily expected moves. So ES did trade up above its upper daily expected move again to the 567 level, and now it's moving back below. And the SPX volatility trigger still remains above at 5,700. There's the SPY 565 volatility trigger. And ES did trade up above its upper weekly expected move, and now trading looks like just down below that. A lot of key levels in play for today, the expected moves, as well as SPX and SPY levels for the S&P 500. All right, let's take a look at shifts in levels. Again, no shifts in levels for SPX, and for SPY, volatility trigger higher, call wall lower. All right, so those are the levels in play for the S&P 500. Let's take a look at Nasdaq. We'll get to setups in just a few minutes, see what options traders have been doing. So let's go to Nasdaq. This is the NQ Futures and Bookmap. And I'm going to take a look at the underlying index charts first so we can isolate these levels. By the way, for SPY, there is a, for the S&P 500 ES, there is a difference in price between ES and SPX. Today it's right around 43 points, somewhere between 42.5 to 43, closest to 43. That's what I'm calling it. And I do post those index relationships that I'm using every day in Discord as well. So, for example, SPX 5700 is shown at ES 5743. That's the current offset. And those do change every day. All right, here's Nasdaq. Again, let's take a look at the underlying index charts. Start with QQQ. QQQ support at the round number 466. And QQQ did trade above the, excuse me, 470 put wall. That's also the absolute gamma strike. Almost up to 480, which is the volatility trigger. And then a 475 level, and also let's see, 475 is large gamma 4 level, and then some combo levels, a couple combo levels in play. All right, so QQQ traded up just below its volatility trigger. You can see right here. Oops. All right, let's take a look at NDX. Remember this 466 support level. Let's see what that lines up with NDX, or how that lines up with NDX. And exactly at this 19,163 level. And that is the combo 3 level. And then another level in play, this 452 level. That is a combo 1 level, combining NDX and QQQ. Gamma weighted open interest, and then the volatility trigger at 510, 500 large gamma 2 level. So again, key support at the 163 combo level, and NDX did trade up above its call wall, now back down below, but still above its volatility trigger. All right, back to Bookmap now. So in Bookmap, just like the S&P 500 ES, I have the key levels for NDX, QQQ, and NQ shown on this chart. There's that combo 3 level. And then right here, you can see the dashed purple and blue line. That's the upper daily expected move, upper weekly expected move for NQ. Big movement today. I know these are a lot of levels. That's why I'd like to isolate the QQQ and NDX levels in separate charts to make more sense of this. All right, we'll talk about setups in just a few minutes. Let's wrap up in just a couple of minutes. Let's wrap up our view positional analysis by taking a look at gamma notional. All right, let's go to gamma notional. This is market maker's position on the gamma curve at the beginning of the day. We'll take a real-time look at gamma in just a moment. Here's gamma notional market maker's position on the gamma curve at the beginning of the day. For the S&P 500, Nasdaq, Russell 2000, note all these numbers are negative, indicating for an index. Market makers are, traders are long puts, market makers are short puts, hence the negative gamma. These numbers are negative, less negative than yesterday, and yesterday they were less negative than Friday. So gamma notional now shifting higher, but still negative. Let's take a real-time look at gamma now. And this is the trace tool available to Spotgamma subscribers. Red shading showing negative gamma. Let's step back in time. Go back toward the beginning of the day. We'll go to about 10 minutes after the cash open. And you can see that SPX opened up in negative gamma, the red shading, with a pocket of positive gamma up here right around 50, centered at 56.35. So let's step forward in time. Not sure why the GEX bars aren't showing up on the left. All right, there we go. So positive gamma strikes here at 56.50 and 5700. So we'll watch those as we step through time. As price approaches that 56.50 level, gamma is increasing, and then that will start to decrease as price moves up. And we move up to current time, gamma notional at the 5700 strike was increasing, now decreasing a little bit as price is moving lower right now into a zone of negative gamma again. So in negative gamma, we're looking for faster movement, and in positive gamma, looking for slower movement. So positive gamma up above and negative gamma. So that positive gamma at 5700 acting as resistance. All right, so based on this, my thesis for the day was definitely looking for higher volatility. Also note the low stability index doesn't get much lower than 2%. So again, looking for higher movement, and directional bias today really just depends on news and reaction to the news. All right, let's take a look at some setups now. Let's move on to execution. And I'm going to start with the S&P 500 and start by taking a look at what options traders have been doing today. This is the Hero tool. This is available to Spotgamma subscribers. And there are two Hero signals that we can take a look at for the S&P 500. The first is the index signal. That's what I'm taking a look at now. This is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity in real time for the S&P 500 index components, SPX, SPY, ES, and XSP. And of course, Hero signal rising today. Let's take a look also at the equity signal. This is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for all 500 stocks in the S&P 500 index. And in both of these cases, when traders buy calls and sell puts. Market makers take the opposite side of those trades, and they hedge their delta exposure with the underlying. So in the case of the index signal here, they're buying AS futures, and for the equity signal, they're buying the underlying stock components. All right, let's go back. I'm going to shift to puts and calls. Let's start with the index signal. So you can see that the orange line showing calls, rising orange line indicates traders buying calls, market makers sell the calls, and they have to buy ES futures to hedge their delta exposure. That's the most efficient way for them to hedge the S&P 500 index components. And initially, first 10 minutes, they were selling puts, and then that really flattened out. And it was the call buyers driving price higher. So in the S&P 500 index, call buyers, and in the equity signal, both call buyers and put sellers. Put sellers shown by the rising blue line. And note these lines have finally leveled off as the S&P 500 SPX, that's the white line, has approached the 5,700 hedge wall level. Now it looks like they're starting to buy puts. And that is the equity signal. Go to the index signal. The index signal usually is a little bit more noisy and provides a clear signal of potential turning points, like right here. This call peak pattern, note there have been several call peak patterns. Each case indicating a slowdown, a pullback, or maybe even a reversal. Very reliable reversal pattern in the call peak pattern. And note, right around 110, traders have now started to buy puts. All right, let's go to Bookmap now. So we've got a picture of what options traders have been doing today. Bullish up until about 110. Back to Bookmap now. I'm going to zoom in on this just a little bit. All right, here's the rocket launch at the open. Aggressive buyers coming in. You can see all the green volume dots. The volume dots show market buy minus sell, delta. And green volume dots indicate more buyers than sellers. Rising cumulative volume delta, that's shown by the dark blue line. And the yellow line is showing stop orders. Buy stop orders, helping to fuel the move higher. Call buyers, put sellers, aggressive buyers, buy stop orders, all driving price higher, and a very steady uptrend, multiple pullbacks for long entries. Up to almost to the 5,700 level. Again, that's when the options traders started to take their foot off the gas. And also again from both the SPX and ES lower daily expected move to the upper daily expected move. And by the way, for SPX, the expected move was plus or minus right around 55 points. And that was reduced. So the expected move has been dropping down every day. 71 points on Monday, 61 yesterday, 55 today, indicating to me a decreasing concern about the tariff announcement today. All right, so that is the ES, very bullish setup, driven by call buyers, put sellers, aggressive buyers, buy stop orders. And note net for the day, large traders have been fading this move with iceberg orders they use to hide their size. That's shown by the light blue line, and especially just recently. Some large iceberg orders coming in right around 145. And from this view, you can see the aggressive sellers that started to come in right around 110, 115. All right, so that's the S&P 500, great long setup this morning. We'll get back to the live market in a few minutes. Floyd's Garage, welcome, glad you're here. Floyd's Garage says that's interesting. They built liquidity around the 5,700 to 43. Also, you're welcome. If it gets through the positive gamma, then can blast up in negative gamma. So I assume you're talking about Trace. Let's take a look at that again. Let's go to Trace. After such a big move today, and this positive gamma up above, I would expect that SPX would have a hard time getting through this, getting through this level up above the 5,700 level. That would be my assessment. That may be the close to the high of the day. Who knows? But this looks like, at least for today, remember SPX has already made a substantial move. All right, back to Bookmap now. Actually, let's move on to Nasdaq. So just like the S&P 500, there are two signals that we can take a look at. And the first is the Nasdaq index signal, showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for NDX and QQQ. And this signal has been pretty noisy today. The shift to total still doesn't help, but it has been shifting lower, making lower highs since just right around 1130. So that is the Nasdaq index signal, NDX QQQ. Let's take a look at the Mag 7 signal. This is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the stocks known as the Magnificent Seven: Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, Nvidia, Tesla, and the Mag 7 signal, of course, has been rising today, and then finally leveling off. The options traders taking their foot off the gas just before 1 o'clock, right around 1 o'clock, 12:50 to 13:10. Separate out puts and calls. Whoops. So call buyers and put sellers driving price higher in the Mag 7 stocks. And clearly, call buyers took the foot off the gas right after 12:30. And pretty much the same for the put sellers. Now they're starting to buy some puts. All right, let's go to Nasdaq, NQ futures. Looking at the cash open, again, blast off. Aggressive buyers coming in. Call buyers, put sellers. Price moves up all the way to the upper daily and weekly expected moves and above. Now back down below. Multiple pullback entries. And if I zoomed in, you would see more pullback entries. All right, that's the S&P 500 and Nasdaq. Very bullish setup this morning. And note initially for NQ, large traders were buying. They were in on that move higher up until about 10 o'clock. Took their foot off the gas, then price. They started selling. So unlike the S&P 500 ES, large traders in on the initial move higher, as well as aggressive buyers and also buy stop orders. Let's zoom in on this. So Nasdaq making a pretty quick move lower, down from 19,750 heading towards 650. Pretty quick 100-point move lower, potential 100-point move lower. Let's go back to check Hero. Zoom in on this a bit. All right, so remember for the Nasdaq index signal that the Hero signal has been turning lower. So in this case, providing a pretty good signal. Call sellers coming in 12:30, then put buyers coming in at right around 120. And Nasdaq definitely making a sharp move lower. So the Nasdaq index signal providing a very clear signal. This is actually a pretty typical setup when you compare both the Mag 7 and the index signal. So we know the index signal, traders have been selling calls, started buying puts. And for the Mag 7 signal, what this shows is the fool that had been moving Nasdaq higher. The call buyers took their foot off the gas. And the same for the put sellers. So the fuel that had been driving price higher is gone now, took their foot off the gas, and then the Nasdaq index components have taken over the call sellers and the put buyers, driving Nasdaq lower. Let's check S&P equities. Also flat to slightly lower right now, and the same for the index signal. Last call peak pattern. Just after 110, traders started selling calls, buying puts. And ES moving lower as well. All right, let's take a look at some stocks. Then we'll get back to the indexes. And today I'm just going to focus on some of the Mag 7 stocks. Start with Apple, and a very similar pattern in all these stocks today. Very bullish opening drive. Let's see what options traders are doing. You know, of course, the Mag 7 stocks driving our big driver of price in Nasdaq and the S&P 500. Take a look at Apple. Call buyers, put sellers. Bullish opening drive, also bullish momentum continuation as traders sell puts and buy calls. Calls shown again with the orange line, puts shown with the blue line. Direction of lines in terms of option delta. All right, so finally, call buyers took their foot off the gas. Right around 120, Apple started to move lower. The fuel driving price higher is gone. Apple moving lower. Back to Bookmap. Bullish opening drive, aggressive buyers. There's the opening print, aggressive buyers. Price blast up, pullback entries. Market pulse price change helps to identify those deeper pullback entries in an uptrend. The red shading there. Price target, primarily price target at 225, the high liquidity at that level. There were some sell orders in the order book before the cash opened, but most came in after the cash opened. Those are limit sell orders, helped to attract price, and those sell orders did execute. Now, Apple moving lower as the call buyers have taken the foot off the gas. All right, there's Apple, helping to drive the index. Index is higher, now lower. Next stock is Amazon. Let's see what options traders are doing. Go to Amazon. Or it looks like large block orders coming in just before noon, so I'll zoom out. Zoom in, so that is not an I'm still working in a staging environment, beta environment. I'm going to try and hold it like this. No, that doesn't help. So anyway, I hope you saw that traders were buying calls and selling puts at the open. Again, multiple large block orders came in right after 1150, and Amazon jumped higher. So bullish opening drive, and then a little bit of exhaustion, foot off the gas. Amazon held steady. Large block orders came in, mostly call buyers. Price moved higher, and Amazon made a very clear call peak just after 1 o'clock and is now moving lower. This call peak is a very reliable bearish reversal pattern. So kind of classic patterns here in Hero. First of all, the bullish opening drive. And then an institutional kickoff. Large traders coming in. That looks like multiple institutional orders buying calls. And then retail traders, smaller traders follow on, continue to buy calls, and then a call peak pattern. So bullish opening drive, call exhaustion, and then a institutional kickoff for this next leg higher up to a call peak pattern. All right, back to Bookmap now. So there's Amazon. Bullish opening drive. Exhaustion, consolidation. Institutional kickoff, and then call peak. All right, so I think helping to looking at Hero in terms of patterns helps to identify the potential price action. Bradley, welcome. Glad you're here. Bradley asked, how would you identify the gamma flip zone? Is that the hedge wall? So for an index, which is what I've talked about, it's the volatility trigger, which would be the gamma flip level. Or actually, that would be the zero gamma level, but the most important level where market makers have to shift from trading against price above that level to trading with price below that level. That's the volatility trigger. So I say that's the volatility and gamma flip level. It's the volatility trigger. All right, Bradley, hope that answers your question. And that level, that volatility trigger, can often act as support or resistance. RJ8922, welcome, glad you're here. Ask questions about the Hero indicator. Does it have data before the cash open for SPX and ES? Yes. Yes. And I normally, after the cash open, I turn that off. Then at the end of the day, before I shut everything down, I turn that back on. So the next morning, I will see the SPX and ES before the cash open. And also, RJ asked, are you able to see multiple days hero data? Yes. So the last time I checked, you can see hero data for the previous 5 days. And yeah, when I'll show an example of these. Let me get through these stocks, and then I'll show the take a look and show you the answers to your questions. All right, so let's take a look. The next stock on my list, that is Meta. Another strong rally today. This is pretty typical of the Meta, a very quick bullish opening drive, up about 15 points. Looks like more consolidation and maybe a peak pattern. Let's take a look and see what options traders are doing today. All right, let's go to Meta. All right, again, I'm in a staging environment, having a little bit of trouble zooming in. So bullish opening drive, call buyers, put sellers. And there's your call peak pattern. And that puts an end to that very fast bullish opening drive as traders abruptly shift from buying calls to selling calls. Note they were selling puts, and that slowed down. So the put sellers, call buyers, took their foot off the gas, consolidation. Looks like a large block order, some large institution selling calls. Then the call buyers came back in. Kind of a complex pattern here today in Meta. And also at the same time that traders were selling calls, buying puts. Then they have continued to buy puts, now selling calls. And Meta moving back lower. Complex pattern, break it down into individual patterns, bullish opening drive, call peak, exhaustion, consolidation, and institutional kickoff to what could have been a move down. And then call buyers come in again and another call peak pattern. And now more bearish continuation down as traders sell calls and buy puts. So complex pattern in Meta and reflected in the chart. Next stock, NVIDIA. And just like the other Mag 7 stocks, bullish day in NVIDIA. Let's see what options traders have been doing. Let's see if we can get any clarity with the total signal. Yeah, I'd say this is a little bit more clear. Bullish opening drive again, 15 minutes, consolidation, a little bit of institutional kickoff, move up, more consolidation, more follow through than a peak pattern. You know, NVIDIA moving lower. Let's break that down into calls and puts. All right, so today traders have been selling puts, taking advantage of high implied volatility, most likely, up until about 115. Call buyers coming in waves, opening drive, consolidation, A little bit of an institutional kickoff, coming back in waves, then a call peak pattern right around 115. So right now, traders are selling calls and buying puts in NVIDIA. And NVIDIA did break above the 110 level, the hedge wall key gamma strike. Let's go take a look at Bookmap. Remember 110, key gamma strike, hedge wall. Price did break above that level, now trading back down below. And note the aggressive sellers that began to come in, mostly around 1130, cumulative volume delta moving lower. And this last move down, absorption at 112, then almost all aggressive sellers. Very clear in Bookmap. Call peak pattern, traders buying puts, selling calls, aggressive sellers coming in. So a nice short setup there in NVIDIA. Let's take a look at Tesla. Very bullish day in Tesla. And unlike other stocks, which are reversing now, looks like Tesla's just consolidating. So Tesla's up almost 30 points today on a couple of news items. First of all, Tesla did report deliveries this morning. They actually came in less than expected. But I think the big news is this is an unconfirmed report that Elon Musk will be leaving the Doge team, stepping away, and maybe getting back to running his companies. And Tesla buyers looking at that as positive, or Tesla traders. So let's see what options traders have been doing today in Tesla. Let's go to Tesla. And Tesla traders continue to buy calls. And looks like the put sellers have taken their foot off the gas right around 11:45. But they continue to buy calls. And Tesla continues to grind higher. Looks like maybe consolidating now, but not moving lower like the other Mag 7 stocks and the indexes. All right, does anyone have any questions? All right, I'm going to go answer RJ's questions here. I'm going to shift back to total, shift back to the S&P 500. And first of all, let's take a look at, now again, remember I am in a staging environment, beta environment. Now this is available in the production environment as well. The ability, some of these settings may not be available yet, but this one is. Show extended hours. So you can see that this signal actually starts, let me close this, and this is for the index only, showing SPX and ES. And I can actually shift to SPX as well and show this. I don't have ES up here. So this is showing options trades. Looks like it's beginning at midnight. But compared with the regular trading hours, it's generally insignificant. Although if you do trade before the cash open, it can provide some guidance, some clarity. All right, so RJ, there's the answer to your first question. All right, let's turn off extended hours. Now let's take a step back in time. So I can show, and since this is the first of the month, so I can show back to the 27th. So I'm showing the start date back to the 27th. All right, so that's showing multiple days in Hero there, starting from the 27th last week. All right, so there you go, RJ, and that would be again from the 27th last Thursday all the way to today. All right, so let's go back. Just show one day. So start date the 2nd and the end date the 2nd, not showing extended hours. So this is what I look at during the day. And if I want to do research after the close, I will look at multiple days, or and again, before I shut down for the evening, I will turn extended hours back on, and then when I open up Hero in the morning, that's what I'll see. All right, so traders, Hero shifting sharply lower now. And you're welcome, RJ. All right, let's go back. Let's take a look at the Nasdaq now. All right, so it looks like traders are starting to take some positive delta positions as NDX has moved down to the 510 hedge wall, maybe down to the 500 level. Actually trading right around 482 now. Check Mag 7. All right, so the pattern here, looking at the index and the equity signals. Equity signal, sharper signal here, indicating a reversal lower. And equity signal, this applies to both the S&P 500 and Nasdaq. More just a foot off the gas. Foot off the gas, then now starting to move lower. And the index signal again showing the sharper reversal lower. All right, so let's go take a look at the indexes again. Now, if anybody has any stocks they want me to take a look at, please let me know. I'd be glad to do that. All right, so from the peak today, ES has moved down about 50 points. And there's the bigger picture. Iceberg orders getting their way as price moves lower. Take a look at Nasdaq. After the initial breakdown, pull back to 750. Or actually break down, pull back to 750. Then move lower, pull back to 700, move lower. Let's take a look at the big picture. Bradley says, would be interested how options complex looks on something brand new like CoreWeave. I'm pretty sure that CoreWeave does not have options yet. We can check in Thinkorswim. It usually takes a week or two. And certainly CoreWeave will not be available on Hero unless somebody requests it. So let's go. By the way, Bradley and everyone else, Hero is only available for select stocks. It's not available for every stock. All right, so let's take a look at Oh, CoreWeave does actually have options now. So that's interesting. And there's actually some volume and open interest. So I'm looking at the April expiration. Bid-ask spread's pretty wide. All right, so that's 60 cents wide. 30 cents wide. So if I were trading options in CoreWeave, I would only trade spread trades. I would not buy or sell single options due to that high spread. But there is decent open interest and decent volume. So I would expect in CoreWeave to see some interesting trading in options. And I'm surprised options are available so soon. Let's check the May expiration. And there's no open interest. A little bit of volume today. So it's going to take some time for the open interest and volume to build. But CoreWeave definitely had an interesting stock today, traded up pretty substantially yesterday. There was another IPO recently. Let's check that. Newsmax. And no options for Newsmax, but there are for CoreWeave. By the way, let's take a look at something here. Brent Kachuba, who wrote the Spotgamma Amphenner's note, laid out a couple of scenarios today. First of all, a move higher to 59.50. And one way to play that is with this Venus butterfly. And this is for the April April expiration, AM expiration. This is a Venus butterfly. No risk to the upside. It was trading at almost $100 or a higher profit today. Of course, again, SPX has moved lower. And looks like my time is up. I need to stop. Another way to play that for the downside at 5,400 is this calendar. And this is a low price calendar. This is a Monday, Friday calendar, short term. So a couple ways to play the move down and up. All right, quickly, let's take a look at Carvana, then I need to wrap it up. Back to Hero. I don't have Carvana in Bookmap. We can take a look at Hero. All right, so bullish like everything else at the open. And then call buyers, put sellers took the foot off the gas a little bit after one. And now Carvana consolidating. All right, everyone. I want to thank you very much for watching. AAPS, hope that answers your question. There's Carvana. All right, everyone, thank you very much for watching. Let's go back to Bookmap. SPX, ES may be finding support at VWAP, the light blue line. All right, everyone, again, thank you very much for watching. Thanks for your questions and comments. Have a great afternoon. Remember, tariff announcement this afternoon, 4 p.m. and PMI data tomorrow. Jobs report on Friday. Powell speaking also on Friday. And I will see you on Monday. Thanks again, everyone. Bye.